If you want to understand why certain areas of your life feel like a constant battle and why your biggest breakthroughs keep happening in those same places, you have to look at Mars. Mars is the planet that describes your action style. How you move when you're under pressure, how you go after what you want, and how you handle anger, frustration, and desire when life stops being calm. It shows whether you shut down, lash out, or quietly turn stress into results. Some people freeze when things get intense. Some people blow up and regret it later. Others use that tension as fuel and become sharper, stronger, and more focused. Mars is the pattern behind all of those reactions. The sign of Mars in your chart explains how you fight your battles, your tone, your style, your emotional flavor. The house of Mars explains where those battles show up: career, relationships, money, family, or your inner world. Wherever Mars is placed, that part of life will bring you the most conflict, the toughest tests, and also the biggest opportunity to become powerful if you choose to work with that energy instead of fighting against it. Mars doesn't only charge up the house it sits in, it also sends its energy into 3 other parts of your chart through special aspects: the 4th, the 7th, and the 8th. You can think of these aspects as 3 tools you're carrying. The 4th aspect is your shield. Wherever this lands, you're learning how to protect yourself emotionally, create stability, and stop draining your energy on things that don't deserve it. The 7th aspect is your sword. This is the way you stand up to people when you're face to face, how you handle confrontation in relationships, negotiations, and direct conflict. The 8th aspect is your scalpel. Here, Mars cuts deeper. It brings turning points, uncomfortable truths, and the kind of transformation that usually arrives through crisis and change. So when we talk about Mars in each house, we're not just listing traits. We're actually mapping where life will challenge you the most and where, if you learn to handle that fire well, you can become the strongest version of yourself. Let's go house by house and see exactly where your inner warrior is working in your life. Mars in the 1st house. When Mars sits in the 1st house, your whole personality is wired around action, confrontation, and initiative. The 1st house describes your body, your instinctive behavior, and the way you enter any situation. Mars here gives you a strong presence, quick reactions, and a natural readiness to fight or lead. People with Mars in the 1st house often look and move like they are built for action. There may be an athletic build, sharp facial features, or simply a vibe that feels intense and focused. Emotionally, they are not the type to sit back and wait. They prefer to take the first step, say what needs to be said, and push things forward. This can be amazing in business, sports, and leadership, because they don't freeze when life tests them. You'll usually see them taking charge even in small situations. In a group project, they instinctively become the one organizing people. In a crisis, they are the first to stand up, call for help, or confront the problem. They might also be the person who tells you exactly what they think about you without softening the edges. That directness can be refreshing or intimidating, depending on who receives it. But the same energy is also risky. Mars in the 1st house can turn you into your own worst enemy if you don't control your impulses. It is very easy for this placement to start arguments, take decisions too fast, or push so hard that people and opportunities break under that pressure. Anger quickly becomes visible. People around you will feel your moods and your reactions. If you never give your Mars a healthy outlet, like training, disciplined work, or structured competition, it will start using people as its outlet instead. You may also see physical manifestations of this energy: minor injuries from rushing, scars from active childhood, or a tendency to engage in sports or activities where risk is part of the experience. Your body becomes the battlefield and the weapon at the same time. The 1st house Mars person has to learn one big lesson: aim your fire. You already have courage. You already have drive. You don't need more intensity. You need better direction. When you learn to pause before reacting, your Mars transforms from destructive to legendary. You become the person who others look at and say, they're unstoppable, but they're also wise. Career-wise, this placement is excellent for entrepreneurs, fighters, soldiers, first responders, bold creators, and anyone who benefits from a strong, direct personality. In relationships, it demands partners who understand intensity and respect clear communication, because you don't do well in passive-aggressive or overly subtle environments. The 4th, 7th, and 8th aspects from this Mars send your warrior energy toward home, relationships, and transformation. Home life, partnerships, and big life changes will all feel like arenas where your courage and self-control are tested. If you manage that test, Mars in the 1st house becomes the signature of a true survivor and a natural leader. If you like the downloadable version of this mind map, along with some exclusive astrology content to help you understand yourself even better, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 2nd house. The 2nd house in astrology speaks about your finances, your speech, your family values, and your relationship with food and material security. When Mars is in the 2nd house, it channels its fire through your mouth and your money decisions. People with this placement often speak with intensity. Their voice has power. They can argue, sell, persuade, or confront without being timid. This is why Mars in the 2nd house can be excellent for sales, law, public speaking, negotiations, and content creation. When they talk, people listen because the energy behind their words feels strong. They may be the friend who negotiates every bill at a restaurant, the colleague who fights for a fair raise, or the family member who says the uncomfortable truth at the dinner table. They don't like pretending, especially around practical topics like money, responsibilities, and values. That honesty is valuable, but the way it's delivered matters. At the same time, this is a very sensitive position. The same tongue that can close deals and inspire can also hurt. If Mars is not well controlled, these natives may speak harshly, criticize too directly, or use sarcasm as a weapon. Arguments about money, inheritance, or family responsibilities can flare up quickly. Long term, people remember what was said, not just what was meant. You may be forgiven, but your words will not be forgotten. Financially, Mars wants movement. It does not enjoy sitting still or hoarding quietly. It pushes the person toward investments, side hustles, business ideas, or bold spending. Used wisely, this creates the courage to grow wealth and fix financial problems instead of avoiding them. Used recklessly, it leads to impulsive spending, speculative gambling, and emotional shopping. You might buy or invest just to feel powerful or to relieve stress and regret it later. Another dimension is self-worth. For many people with Mars in the 2nd house, self-esteem becomes tied to income and material success. They feel powerful when money is flowing and agitated or defensive when it is not. This can be a strong motivator, but it can also turn life into a constant financial fight, even when basic needs are already met. The 2nd house also links to what you consume, both food and information. Mars here can push towards strong tastes, strong opinions, and strong habits. There may be a tendency toward spicy food, intense flavors, or all or nothing eating patterns. Learning moderation becomes part of the journey. With its 4th, 7th, and 8th aspects, this Mars sends energy toward home, relationships, and deeper belief systems. Your speech and money decisions will echo into your domestic life, your partnerships, and your long-term vision. If you choose to speak with awareness and spend with strategy, Mars in the 2nd house becomes a major asset. The placement of a bold negotiator and a person who can build financial strength through courage and clear thinking. If you like the downloadable version of this mind map, plus exclusive astrology content to help you connect the dots in your chart, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 3rd house. The 3rd house is the house of communication, short journeys, skills, siblings, and everyday decisions. Mars in the 3rd house is like caffeine in your nervous system. It pushes you to move, talk, learn, compete, and fix things constantly. People with this placement rarely sit idle. They like to be doing something, working on a project, learning a tool, driving somewhere, testing a strategy, or playing a competitive game. You'll often see them juggling several tasks at once and switching quickly between them. This is a fantastic placement for athletes, marketers, traders, journalists, content creators, and technicians, because life rewards their ability to think fast and act fast. Siblings often play a big role. Mars, in the third, can create strong dynamics with brothers or sisters, sometimes supportive, sometimes competitive, sometimes both. Younger siblings may be bold and outspoken. The person may feel driven to protect, challenge, or outgrow their siblings. These relationships become part of the psychological training ground for handling conflict and cooperation. Many of their early fights and early alliances happen in this space. Communication style is direct. Mars does not enjoy vague, foggy dialogue. These natives prefer clear statements, straight answers, and actionable plans. If they're not careful, this can look like interrupting, arguing for no reason, or coming off as too intense in everyday conversations. They can dominate discussions without meaning to. The mind is sharp, but patience must be trained consciously. Driving, travel, and movement also carry Mars flavor. Some will love speed and pushing limits. Others will feel anxious about accidents and need to cultivate confidence. They may have stories about small crashes, close calls, or learning to drive under pressure. The key is to respect risk while still allowing yourself to move. The biggest gift of this placement is practical intelligence. Mars in the third can turn someone into the go-to problem solver in their group. When something breaks, when a deadline is tight, or when a situation needs quick action, they step in and handle it. People trust them to get things done. The biggest challenge is mental burnout. Too many tasks, too many conversations, too many battles over small details. They can tire their own mind with constant stimulation. With its aspects, this Mars sends energy toward the 6th, 9th, and 10th houses. That means daily work, belief systems, and career are all impacted by your hustle. Your way of solving small problems becomes the way you handle big ones. If you learn to direct your effort toward meaningful goals and upgrade your listening skills, Mars in the third house becomes a signature of someone who can outwork and outlearn their competition over and over again. If you'd like a downloadable copy of this mind map and even more astrology resources to keep learning, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars. In the fourth house represents home, family atmosphere, emotional foundations, and your sense of inner safety. When Mars is in the fourth house, it pours its intensity into your private life. This placement often creates a strong need to protect and a strong urge to escape at the same time. On the positive side, people with Mars in the fourth house can be extremely responsible for their family. They may work hard to buy a home, maintain property, or give their loved ones material security. Many people in real estate, construction, home renovation, or infrastructure fields have strong fourth house Mars because they naturally think in terms of land, buildings, and foundations. They see houses not just as walls and roofs, but as symbols of safety and status. Emotionally, however, Mars in a house linked to feelings and roots can be turbulent. If anger, frustration, or old wounds are not processed, they surface in the domestic environment. Arguments, raised voices, silent tension, or a feeling of walking on eggshells can be part of the early home experience. The person may feel that no matter what they do, they are not fully appreciated, which creates even more frustration. They might leave the house often just to breathe, only to feel guilty about it. Internally, this can feel like living in a cage. There is a constant pull between duty and freedom. Part of you wants to stay, protect, and hold everything together. Another part wants to move, travel, change cities, or create your own space far away from old patterns. Many people with Mars in the fourth eventually find that relocating or redefining home helps them calm their inner fire. Sometimes, even changing the layout of their living space or spending regular time near water or nature can soothe this placement. The lesson of this placement is emotional maturity. You're being asked to learn how to protect your home without turning it into a war zone. That means developing emotional regulation, communication skills, and healthy outlets for stress like physical exercise, therapy, or creative work so that your family doesn't become the target for every mood. Career-wise, Mars in the fourth can be very supportive for professions related to property, vehicles, land, architecture, design, or even storytelling about deep human emotion. People who write or direct emotionally intense films or books often carry strong fourth house energy because they understand inner storms. With its aspects, this Mars sends energy toward the 7th, 10th, and 11th houses. That links your home patterns to relationships, career, and social circles. If you choose to face your inner battles consciously, Mars in the 4th house can transform from a source of domestic tension into the power that helps you build real security for yourself and for the people you care about. If you like the downloadable version of this mind map, along with exclusive astrology content you can revisit anytime, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 5th house. The 5th house is the house of creativity, romance, children, fun, and speculative risk. When Mars lands in the 5th house, it pours raw passion into all of these areas. This person doesn't kind of like things. When they fall in love with a hobby, a sport, a creative project, or a person, they go all in. They can spend huge amounts of time, effort, and emotional energy on what they love because Mars keeps their heart fully engaged. They don't just flirt with ideas, they commit. That's why this placement is excellent for performers, athletes, traders, comedians, influencers, and creative entrepreneurs. They have the courage to put themselves out there, whether it's on stage, on camera, or in markets. They don't shy away from competition. They enjoy the thrill of being seen, tested, and judged because it gives them something to fight for. In romance, the energy is intense. These natives love deeply and express love actively. They'll show up, they'll give, they'll invest themselves. They might be the partner who plans grand gestures, shows visible affection, and isn't afraid to talk about desire. The challenge is possessiveness. If fear creeps in, Mars can turn romance into interrogation, constant questioning, checking, and controlling. That never ends well. Love needs space to breathe. Mars in the 5th has to learn that if a bond is real, it survives freedom. If it's fake, no amount of control can save it. Speculation and risk are another big theme. The 5th house connects to gambling, trading, and any game where you risk something for a reward. Mars enjoys that adrenaline. With a solid strategy, this placement can make someone very good at short-term trading or tactical risk. Without discipline, it creates overtrading, chasing losses, and emotional decisions in markets. They might feel alive only when a lot is on the line. Creatively, Mars in the 5th is pure fuel. These people can be incredibly productive when inspired. They can turn their talents into careers faster than most because they're willing to practice hard, show up consistently, and push through criticism. They're not afraid of public feedback. In fact, it can drive them to improve. Children and teaching can also be Mars territories here. They may parent or mentor in a direct, active way, playing, training, challenging, and pushing younger people to be strong and expressive. The lesson of this placement is simple but not easy. Use your passion to build, not to burn. When they direct Mars into craft, training, and purposeful risk, they become powerful creators and performers. When they direct it into jealousy, drama, or reckless gambling, they burn the very things they care about. If you're enjoying this journey through your birth chart, you can download this mind map and unlock exclusive astrology content on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 6th house. The 6th house rules work, service, health, routines, and enemies. Mars here is in one of its strongest positions. It loves the 6th house because this is the arena of everyday battles. People with Mars in the 6th often thrive in high-pressure professions. Think soldiers, doctors, surgeons, lawyers, athletes, crisis managers, or anyone who constantly deals with problems, deadlines, and competition. Their instinct under stress is to act, not to collapse. They're the ones who step up when things go wrong, sometimes even before anyone asks them to. Routine becomes their training ground. Mars in the 6th can be the classic workaholic, but not just in the negative sense. When this energy is healthy, they build powerful habits, gym, study, practice, deep work, and repeat them until they become elite. Their stamina, both physical and mental, is a major asset. They improve through repetition, not random effort. Of course, there's a shadow. If they never slow down, they burn out. Ignored rest leads to inflammation, stress issues, and long-term fatigue. The same fire that lets them dominate in their field can slowly damage the body if they treat themselves like a machine instead of a living system. They may ignore early warning signs, telling themselves, "I'll fix it later," and later never comes. Enemies and obstacles are part of the script. Mars in the 6th often attracts rivals, critics, and people who try to block them. The good news is that this Mars is built to beat those obstacles. The bad news is that if they fight every single battle, they exhaust themselves. Choosing which fights matter becomes one of the key lessons of this placement. Not every comment needs a response. Not every opponent deserves your full energy. Psychologically, there can be a strong inner critic. They may constantly push themselves to do more and prove more, even when they've already accomplished a lot. They can feel guilty when resting, or uneasy when things are calm. Learning to respect their own limits and celebrate their wins is crucial. When used wisely, Mars in the 6th produces a battle-tested professional, someone who can work, train, and compete at levels other people simply cannot sustain. They just need to remember that endurance is a weapon, not a prison, and that rest is part of winning, not a sign of weakness. If you like this mind map as a downloadable guide, along with exclusive astrology content, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 7th house. The 7th house is the house of marriage, business partnerships, and one-to-one relationships. When Mars sits here, it brings fire directly into your connections with other people. These natives attract strong partners. They are rarely drawn to passive, low-energy relationships. Their partners, whether in love or business, tend to be assertive, driven, and expressive. Sometimes that partner is supportive and protective. Sometimes they are confrontational and intense. Very often, they're both. The relationship feels alive rather than flat. Partnerships become a major arena of learning. Mars in the 7th doesn't guarantee divorce or separation, but it does guarantee testing. Ego clashes, arguments, and power struggles can appear if both people don't know how to handle anger and desire. On the positive side, these same relationships can become powerful collaborations, a couple, or a business duo that takes big risks and builds big things together. They may start companies together, launch projects, or face big life changes as a team. In business, this placement is excellent for joint ventures, client work, and negotiation. These natives can be sharp in deals and strong in contracts. They often understand how to read people in one-to-one situations and are not afraid to push for what they want. The danger comes when emotion enters business too deeply, especially with family. Mixing siblings or close relatives into business with Mars in the 7th can trigger old dynamics and hidden resentments. Sexual energy is strong here. Attraction is intense, and physical connection becomes an important part of the relationship story. That's not good or bad in itself. It just needs maturity and respect. Or it turns into another battlefield where desires and ego collide. The main lesson of Mars in the 7th house is learning to fight with someone, not against them. Life will keep bringing situations where the person has to decide, will I turn this into a war or into a strategy session? When they choose strategy, communication, and shared goals, Mars becomes a force that strengthens their bonds instead of breaking them. Handled well, this placement produces people who do very well in partnership-based businesses and who learn over time to build relationships that are intense, but also resilient and deeply loyal. If you'd like the downloadable version of this mind map, plus exclusive astrology content to explore your relationships more deeply, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars, in the 8th house. The 8th house is one of the most intense houses in the chart. It rules shared resources, psychology, secrets, crisis, and deep transformation. When Mars lands here, it is like putting fire in a pressure cooker. These natives are drawn to the deep end of life. Surface-level conversations and safe, predictable paths rarely satisfy them. They want to understand psychology, trauma, money, power, taboo topics, and how people behave when things get extreme. This can make them excellent therapists, surgeons, investigators, fund managers, restructuring experts, or crisis consultants. They feel strangely calm in situations where others panic. Emotionally, relationships are rarely light or casual. Bonding tends to be intense, sometimes obsessive, and sometimes all or nothing. They may swing between wanting complete merging and wanting total isolation. Trust issues are common because they have a sensitive radar for manipulation and betrayal. They may test people without saying it, just to see how far they can be trusted. When it comes to money, the 8th house connects to shared finances, investments, inheritance, and high-risk moves. Mars loves risk. If combined with intelligence and ethics, this can produce someone who is very good at handling other people's resources, like in funds, taxes, or turnarounds. If combined with impatience or greed, it can lead to destructive losses and long-term stress. They may experience big ups and downs rather than smooth financial growth. One of the biggest gifts of this placement is the ability to transform. People with Mars in the 8th often go through major crises, financial, emotional, or health-related, and come out of them with a completely new understanding of themselves and life. They have the capacity to turn pain into power if they decide to actually learn from it instead of repeating the same patterns. The danger is addiction to intensity. If peace feels boring, they may unconsciously create drama or chase extreme experiences just to feel alive. Over time, that destroys stability. Not every relationship needs to feel like a survival situation, and not every decision needs to involve big risk. The core lesson of Mars in the 8th house is learning to use power responsibly. Power over yourself, power over money, and power in intimate situations. When they choose depth over destruction, this placement produces some of the most psychologically strong and resilient people in astrology. If you're ready to dive even deeper into your chart, you can download this mind map and access exclusive astrology content on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 9th house. The 9th house is about beliefs, higher education, long journeys, ethics, and the search for meaning. Mars here fights for ideas and visions rather than just for money or status. These natives often have strong opinions and strong principles. They care deeply about what is right and wrong in their own worldview. They may be drawn to philosophy, spirituality, law, teaching, coaching, or activism. Travel, study, and exploring different cultures can be a big part of their story. They don't want a life that feels small. They want a horizon that keeps expanding. At their best, they're mission-driven. They don't just work. They feel like they're serving a cause. They can become powerful teachers or speakers because their words carry conviction. People listen to them, not just because of what they know, but because of how strongly they stand behind it. They may inspire others to question systems, leave comfort zones, or stand up for themselves. At their worst, belief becomes a weapon. Mars in the 9th can turn into dogmatism, preaching, and intolerance if they decide that only their view is valid and everyone else is wrong. This can create tension with mentors, parents, or any authority figure who tries to guide them. They may burn bridges with institutions, churches, or teachers by pushing too hard. Educational paths may involve conflict. They might clash with universities, change majors, drop out, or take breaks before finishing. Yet, if they align their studies with what they truly care about, Mars can give them the drive to go very far in higher education. They are more likely to succeed when they feel a deep, personal connection to what they're learning. The life lesson here is learning to balance passion with openness. They are meant to fight for something, but they are also meant to keep learning. When they remember that truth is broad, not narrow, their Mars becomes a force that inspires others instead of pushing them away. Long-distance travel can be catalytic. Moving abroad, studying in another country, or traveling for a cause can activate this placement strongly, turning them into global thinkers rather than local fighters. They may experience key turning points in life while far from home. Handled consciously, Mars in the 9th house produces people who can move crowds, change minds, and challenge systems without losing their humanity in the process. If you'd like the downloadable version of this mind map, along with exclusive astrology content to deepen your understanding, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 10th house. The 10th house is the house of career, reputation, authority, and public life. When Mars sits here, it is on the stage, in full view. These natives are wired for ambition. From a young age, they feel a pull toward doing something significant. They may take on responsibilities early, helping family, working part-time, or leading in school. They don't like the idea of being invisible in their profession. They want impact. They want to be known for what they do. Mars in the 10th house gives strong leadership potential. This person can become a CEO, founder, manager, officer, or any kind of leader who makes decisions and carries responsibility. They're often good in environments where pressure is normal, corporate, military, politics, medicine, law, or media, because Mars keeps them active instead of overwhelmed. They may even thrive on deadlines and high stakes. They're usually direct with bosses and authority figures. They can respect leadership, but they don't blindly obey if they feel something is wrong. This can lead to conflict with superiors if their Mars is unfiltered. Sometimes those conflicts are necessary and lead to better positions. Sometimes they are ego battles that cost them opportunities, learning which is part of their path. Work-life balance is a serious challenge. Mars in the 10th can make someone so work-focused that personal life, health, and family get pushed aside. They may feel guilty when resting, or feel like they're failing if they're not constantly advancing. Long-term, this can create emotional emptiness under the surface of success. They might reach high positions and then realize they don't know how to relax or connect anymore. The lesson of Mars in the 10th is to use ambition as a deliberate tool, not as a reflex. When they choose a career that actually matches their nature, and they build ethical, strategic leadership, this placement can take them very far. They just need to remember that real success includes a life outside the office, and that respect is earned not only through results, but through character. Handled well, Mars in the 10th house is the mark of the commander. It belongs to people who build companies, lead movements, shape industries, or become reference points in their field. If you'd like a downloadable copy of this mind map, plus exclusive astrology content to support your journey, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 11th house. The 11th house covers friendships, networks, communities, and long-term gains and dreams. Mars here is obsessed with results and group energy. These natives think in terms of we as much as I. They care about audience, followers, clients, and collective achievements. Social media, political organizing, community building, and any business that depends on large groups can suit them very well. They see potential in numbers, in followers, subscribers, voters, customers, and want to mobilize that potential. They tend to attract strong, active friends. Their circles may be filled with ambitious people, competitive people, or simply outspoken personalities. Friendships and group projects can involve debates, disagreements, and a lot of energy. Sometimes friends become collaborators. Sometimes collaborators become rivals. Group chats may feel like small battlefields. Mars in the 11th often makes someone impatient about money and success. They want their goals now. If progress is slow, they may push harder, take shortcuts, or jump from one idea to the next. This can lead to burnout or unstable income if they don't create a solid foundation. They might chase trends instead of building timeless value. At the same time, this is a very powerful placement for building long-term gains if they learn to plan. They have the drive to scale. They just need frameworks that keep them consistent instead of reactive. When they combine Mars with strategy, they can grow projects, brands, or movements far beyond the average level. Conflicts with elder siblings or influential friends can show up as part of their story. These conflicts usually teach them something about boundaries, loyalty, and ego. They learn who is truly in their corner and who only shows up when it suits them. The main lesson of Mars in the 11th house is learning to be a warrior inside a team. When they stop trying to dominate every space and start using their energy to empower the group, doors open, Their goals can grow bigger than anything they could achieve alone. Handled wisely, this placement produces people who can build strong communities, scale businesses, and turn networks into real, measurable success. If you'd like the downloadable version of this mind map and exclusive astrology content to continue exploring your chart, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Mars in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of the subconscious, isolation, behind-the-scenes work, foreign lands, and endings. Mars here fights quietly in places most people don't see. These natives often have a lot of energy that doesn't show up as loud behavior. They may work intensely alone, late at night, or in roles where the process is hidden and only the result is visible. Research, strategy, remote work, spiritual practice, therapy, and international business can all resonate strongly with this placement. They often prefer deep focus over constant social interaction. Internally, there can be battles with anxiety, fears, or unprocessed anger. If they don't give Mars a conscious outlet like creative projects, fitness, or inner work, the energy can turn into escapism. They might binge entertainment, sleep excessively, or fall into habits that numb rather than solve. They may appear calm on the surface while their mind is on fire. The 12th house also connects strongly to foreign countries. Mars here often indicates opportunities to work abroad, deal with international clients, or build businesses with a global reach. Long-distance travel and solitude can be growth experiences rather than just escapes. Time spent alone in unfamiliar places can bring key insights about who they really are. Relationships need maturity and patience. Rushing into commitments without understanding their own patterns can lead to confusion or misaligned partnerships. They may carry hidden expectations or fears into relationships that the other person doesn't see. When they take time to know themselves and to heal old wounds, they can become very loyal, deep partners. The main lesson of Mars in the 12th is transforming hidden fire into conscious strategy. They are meant to be planners, not just reactors. When they decide to use their alone time to build something, whether a skill, a business, or a deeper level of self-knowledge, they become the kind of person who moves quietly and then suddenly appears with big, well-executed results. Handled well, this placement belongs to hidden generals, healers, and behind-the-scenes builders who shape outcomes without needing constant spotlight. If you'd like the downloadable version of this mind map, along with exclusive astrology content to keep exploring your birth chart, join me on Patreon. The link is in the description and pinned comment. That's Mars in all the houses. Comment where Mars is placed in your birth chart. Mars is not good or bad. It is raw energy. In every chart, it shows where life pushes you into conflict and where it gives you the strength to win. The house of Mars tells you where you will be tested most. Some people are tested through relationships, some through money, some through career, some through their own mind and emotions. The gift is that the same area that challenges you is also the area where you can become exceptional if you decide to train your Mars instead of letting it run wild. If you use Mars unconsciously, it shows up as anger, accidents, bad decisions, and repeated drama. If you use Mars consciously, it shows up as courage, discipline, strategy, and real achievement. So the question is not, is my Mars good or bad? The real question is, am I using my Mars or is my Mars using me? Once you understand which house your Mars occupies, you know exactly where to start. You can build routines around that area, set clear goals there, and watch your reactions carefully when pressure shows up. If you do that, the planet of war slowly becomes the planet of victory. Not by removing your battles, but by turning you into someone who knows how to fight the right ones in the right way at the right time. I hope this gave you some clarity. Subscribe, and I will meet you with another eye-opening video soon.